still preserved in the eternal tablets?
Now it would matter because obviously we would say, and this goes back to your first question as well, right? That the Quran is meant as a guidance for humankind.
Today as well.
Yeah, for human beings. So the end user is meant to be human beings. So if clearly, we would say if God revealed the scripture, whether it's the Quran or the Gospels or the Torah or whatever, that if it doesn't reach all the people in the same way as it originally reached the initial primary audience, then there's a discrepancy in the access to guidance that end users will have, which will put questions of, is God being just here in his delivery of the message or not? Do you understand?
I think you're going on a bit there. Listen, what I want to get at...
Do you understand what I've just said?
Yes,
what have I just said?
Listen, what I want to talk about...
What have I just said?
You're talking about how there could be differences in...
No, yeah, that's not what I just said. You said I'm going on, but you weren't listening to what I said.
And then I just want a yes or no answer. I'm not talking about what you're talking about. You're talking about
do you understand? It doesn't matter. What I've just said.
Wait. I came here to talk about one specific
What's your name again,
bro? Chris.
Chris, listen, I don't want this to deteriorate.
I was patient enough to... Yeah, I know, but you're not answering me. You're sort of...
What question have you asked that I haven't answered? Give me one question that you've asked that I have not answered.
You're talking about things that I don't think you need to talk about.
One question that you have asked me.
You're deviating from
What's
the topic.
the question that you asked me that I have not answered?
I want to know the Muslim belief about the Quran.
I've already told you.
I said, is it true that the Quran is preserved eternally on a tablet? And you said, well, kind of, and then you talked for a while about how all these other things are also preserved. Really, you could have said yes, okay? Just say, I want the very basic Islamic belief.
Why should I
don't want your interpretation of what that Islamic belief is.
But can I ask, Chris, why do you care how I answer your questions?
I want to keep very closely to the topic, and I don't want to deviate. I don't want to deviate.
No, if it's relevant to the topic at hand,
right.
And if it's edifying, you said you want edification.
You could have just said yes, because the answer is yes.
I want to elaborate.
Okay.
Are you dictating how I'm answering your question?
I'm saying that you can't then just go on a tirade about other things.
I'm not tirade. It's not a tirade.
Okay, so let's be very precise with our language. Be very clear.
Okay, keep going. What's your next question?
So what I'm saying is it true then that there were reciters of the Quran who had different codexes that had different numbers of surahs in those codexes?
When you say reciters, let's be specific. What do you mean?
Okay, so
acceptable reciters or unacceptable?
And Abdullah ibn Masud.
Okay.
Those are two I'm referring to. Is it true in Islamic traditions that those two reciters of the Quran, who if I understand correctly, are said to be some of the greatest reciters of the Quran?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay. They had different codexes with different numbers of surahs in those Qurans.
In the beginning, Ibn Mas'ud did not consider Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas as part of the Quran.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he later retracted this position at the time of Uthman ibn Affan in the second Lajna. This is what Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani mentions in his compendious work Fath al-Bari. So is it true, in the beginning there was truth in the claim that Ibn Mas'ud, for instance, didn't consider chapter 113 and chapter 114 to be the Quran, but he later retracted that position when the ijma' happened, or the consensus happened among the Sahaba companions.
Sure. Okay. So my argument then is that it is not viable to say that the Quran has been perfectly preserved if those who knew Muhammad, who were the companions of Muhammad, who heard him recite the revelation, differed on that revelation and could not agree on what it was.
What is your definition of preservation?
I'm talking about the Islamic definition.
What is the Islamic definition?
Perfect. In other words, there is no difference in words.
No, that's not what Islamic definition is.
That's not what perfect preservation is.
No, that's not what it means.
Okay, so what is it then?
Okay.
It's your view that it is everything is on that tablet, including all errors.
No errors. See, now what you're doing is you're poisoning the well.
Right. Have there ever been mistakes?
Chris, listen to me. You're poisoning the well, and you're not learning.
Okay, I'm not here to learn.
You are here to learn.
I'm here to have a debate with you.
Do you know how to speak Arabic?
I'm here to have a debate with you.
هل تستطيع أن تتحدث باللغة العربية؟ تحدث معي باللغة العربية.
Why do I need to know Arabic?
لا تحدث معي باللغة العربية.
Why do
أنا أريد التكلم معك باللغة العربية.
Why do I need to know Arabic?
So if you're not here to learn,
I'm here to debate. That's literally what I told you I'm doing.
You're here to learn.
Okay, did I come here and say I was here to debate?
You're here to learn. Okay, so that's number one.
Wait.
Number two. Number two. Let me answer your question.
See, don't just keep talking like this. See, you keep waffling, and then you throw out insults. That's not a way to do debate.
Did you know that Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani...
This is now just breaking down into insults. Yeah, I haven't insulted you. I haven't implied that you're lacking in knowledge. I haven't said that you're learning. I haven't asked if you have a good comprehension of the English language.
That's not an insult.
No, it is. It's belittling. He's belittling people because this is his way of winning arguments.
I'm not winning an argument.
I agree.
I'm not winning an argument. See, you agree, yeah?
I agree you're not winning the argument.
Okay, fine. So I'm teaching you then, yeah?
No, you're not winning the argument.
Okay, no problem. I have not made an argument.
I'll probably agree with that as well.
Okay, good.
Listen, what I'm saying.
What do you want to say?
Okay, my understanding from the Islamic point of view is that perfect preservation means there is no change in any of the Arabic word for word, letter for letter.
Good.
Right.
Where's the source for that?
Muslim scholars.
Who?
Okay, Zakir Naik.
Zakir Naik is not a Muslim scholar.
He's not a Muslim scholar. Ahmed Dida.
He's not a scholar on this. He's not authority.
Okay, Dr. Shabi Ali.
Not authority.
I'm just going to keep naming scholars. You're going to go, not an authority.
They're not an authority.
So they don't know Arabic.
No, they don't. I mean, Zakir Naik doesn't know.
They don't know Arabic.
Doesn't know Arabic. No. Number one, first of all, he says that himself. He said that in his lectures. I don't know Arabic.
Dr. Shabi Ali know Arabic.
Yeah, he does, but he's not an authority on this topic.
He's not an authority.
He's not. So let me explain.
So he's not an authority on the earliest Quran manuscripts.
Of course not.
Dr. Shabi Ali.
Yeah, he's not. He's an authority on Christianity. That's what he's done his PhD in. Yeah.
He didn't do it.
As far as I remember, he didn't do his PhD on manuscripts and early codexes. No, he didn't. You don't even know what you're talking.
Sure he did.
No, he didn't. Don't ask him. I've got his number on my phone. Do you want me to call him now and ask him for you?
You can, yeah.
I've got Zakir Naik's number on my phone as well. I spoke with him.
Zakir Naik.
Oh yeah. No, would you like me to ask him for you? These people that you're mentioning are not scholars of this specific field by their own admission.
Why did Dr. Yasser Qadhi peer review?
He didn't peer review. He's not an authority in this field either.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not.
No,
he's not. I know him personally. He's a friend of mine. You don't know what you're talking about, sir.
No, Dr.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yasser Qadhi is an expert on Quranic manuscripts.
No, he's not.
He's not.
No, he's not.
Okay, he peer reviewed.
No, he's not.
Dr. Daniel
He's never claimed. Look, excuse me. He's never once. Yasser Qadhi. I know him very personally.
He's never written a letter to Dr. Daniel Brubaker.
That doesn't make him an authority.
It's a peer review.
That doesn't make him an authority.
He works. He's a doctor.
Make him an authority?
He has a PhD. He works at University of Rice.
Chris.
He peer reviews a book about Quranic manuscripts.
Just to be clear, Yasser Qadhi's specialism is theological heresiology. In the early days.
Well, he's doing something wrong then, because he's peer reviewing.
Anyway, look, I don't want to get into this.
You got that wrong.
I know him personally. I speak to him regularly.
Okay, well, I've read his reply.
His specialism is Aqidah, basically.
Okay, but he feels that he can reply on Dr. Daniel Brubaker's book about the Quranic manuscripts.
Dr. Shabi Ali, by the way, his PhD is in biblical literature.
Sorry, I misspoke. When I said Shabi Ali, I meant Yasser Qadhi. Sorry.
Okay, look, Chris. Sorry. Let me just explain to you who our authorities are.
Sure. Because are you in a position to dictate that?
Pardon? Yes, I am.
You were in a position to dictate who the authorities of Islam.
Yes, I am. Because this, in accordance with basically the view of scholarship, Islamic scholarship. So, for example, we have three groups of, you can say, the Mutaqaddimin. In the Mutaqaddimin period, which is the early period of Islam, you have the Sahaba themselves, the companions, like you mentioned. Mas'ud is an authority, a major authority, Ibn Abbas and those guys. And then you have the Tabi'in and so on, of course. But then, in terms of written works, you have people like At-Tabari. He's a major authority. Abu Amr al-Dani, he's a major authority. These are the early authorities. Okay. Hold on, let me finish. Why are you...
Because you want this to be a lecture. I've made points and you don't address them. You're just going to a lecture.
No, because the reason why this is important, your point was, you said...
Not been perfectly preserved.
No. Right. You said that preservation means perfect preservation. That there's no...
You disagree.
You said what? Can you repeat what you said?
That there is no difference in letter by letter.
Yeah, no difference. But I'm saying no one said that.
No one said that. I can't find people in this park who have said...
No. Who cares about this park? This park is either lay people.
So you're disagreeing with Mansour?
No.
You're disagreeing with Mansour?
No. Let me... I don't know what Mansour said, so for me to disagree with that. I'm not going to take it from you.
Mansour has said
there is no difference in the
Quran.
Listen. Sorry.
Okay, so Mansour is wrong.
I'm not going to say that. Mansour is wrong. You're putting words in my mouth. Be genuine with your speech.
Okay. I am being genuine. I know what he has said. I have spoke to him personally.
It doesn't matter.
And I have seen videos.
It doesn't matter.
See, when I give you an argument, you say it doesn't matter.
No, I'm saying it doesn't. Because
right. So I've demonstrated to you that Muslims do make that argument.
Who?
Mansour. I literally gave you
I'm telling you authorities, you're telling me Mansour.
Right, okay, so Mansour is an authority.
So are we authorities?
He has no idea.
We're not authorities.
Well, you just said you could teach me.
No.
You're claiming to be an authority. People in this park call you a scholar. No, that's a mistake.
Okay,
I'm not don't call this guy a scholar.
Please. Yeah, of course. I've never claimed that myself at all.
So let's just get rid of this whole teaching thing then. Let's just make an argument and a point-by-point conversation.
Call it whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so I'm saying there were early disagreements about what the Quran should have been.
No, Chris, your first point, excuse me. Chris, your first point was that you said preservation means that it's there's no change in any word.
Right. Letter by letter.
Yeah, that's not true. For example,
are you saying that that's not preserved? No, I need clarification.
No, what I'm saying is that the understanding of preservation, hifz, yes, the understanding of hifz or preservation is not that there's no variance.
So there are variants in the Quran.
Everyone agrees that.
Everyone agrees there are variants in the Quran.
Chris, yes.
You all believe in that?
Yeah, Chris.
Wow. All right.
Chris,
Thank you.
Chris, yes.
My argument I wanted to come here today
excuse me,
was to demonstrate that the Quran has not been perfectly preserved, and you've disagreed to that.
No, Chris.
You've just what? That's it. We don't need any more.
You're either acting the fool or you are the fool.
No, I only wanted to know.
You're either acting the fool or you're embarrassing yourself.
No. I asked you. See, you're ad hominem again. You're ad hominem again.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He just did ad hominem, and he just said it doesn't matter.
It's not an ad hominem. It's an ad hominem.
See, again, he makes insults. He makes insults. Why are you not capable of having an argument? Instead, you insult and you belittle.
Chris,
don't belittle.
Okay, forget it. I'm not going to belittle you. Let's deal with the arguments. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Early sources. Let me give you the exact.
Wait. Let's go back to what I said.
I'm going back to what you said.
Perfectly preserved Quran.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is preserved. You're misunderstanding the word preserved.
Okay. What does it mean?
Shall I explain it to you?
Right.
Excellent. So now, there's two views in Islam what the word preservation of the Quran means. I'm being very generic here. Obviously, there's more, but two major views. Yeah, let's say there's the views of what you call the Qurra, and the Mutakallimun. So this includes people like Ibn al-Jazari, who's a major authority in Quranic manuscripts and the Quran itself. It includes people like Fakhruddin al-Razi, who's a mutakallim, and others. That's one group. They say that in order for the Quran to be preserved, every single variant, because the thing is, first and foremost, the Prophet Muhammad said in a hadith, he said, "Unzila al-Quran ala sab'ati ahrufin." So the Quran has been revealed on 7 different variants. So that doesn't mean to say that every single word of the Quran is variant. It means on select words, there are more than one way of saying it. And the reason why the Prophet said that, just a background, the reason why the Prophet said that is he said that it's in order to make it easier for a Shaykh al-Fani, like elderly people and other people, taysir, for making it easier, more facilitated, for people of different tribes, for people of different backgrounds and so on. Chris, let me finish.
I'm not just going to let you just keep going on.
No, I haven't finished. No, I'm
but I don't need all the background. I don't need the background. I just need the argument.
I know, but I need to. Please, just let me finish.
But I know this.
Do you know this?
Yes, everything you said so far, yeah.
You know that, yeah?
Yes. What's
the view? So let me test your knowledge.
I'm not here for let's see who's better at things. I just want you to make an argument.
What is, pop quiz.
Make an argument.
Chris.
Make an argument.
Chris, pop quiz.
I don't want a pop quiz.
Pop quiz. What did the Mutakallimun
listen.
What did the Mutakallimun and the Qurra say?
What is the interpretation of the perfect preservation of the Quran? It's been 5 minutes now, you still haven't told me.
I've told you.
No, you started going about,
I did say
well, there are 2 different views.
Okay, great. What you've just done there is demonstrated your lack of paying attention.
No, listen, you're getting there. Just tell me the answer.
Chris, you're demonstrating your lack of paying attention.
Give me the answer.
The answer is, there's 2 major views.
Okay, well, very quick.
Okay,
Here we go.
First view is
Don't give me the background, just the point.
The first view is the view of the Qurra and the Mutakallimun.
Okay,
which is that all of the variants that are intended by Sab'at Ahruf must be preserved.
Okay, must be preserved.
Yes.
Okay, so if there's any deviance in them, then it wouldn't be perfectly preserved.
What do you mean by any deviance?
So if I can find, Ubay ibn Ka'b had different surahs to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, right? And then
no, that doesn't count what you said there.
What does that not count?
No, I'll explain why that doesn't count.
Okay, tell me.
All right, so what we're talking about, Ubay ibn Ka'b, as I mentioned before, Ubay ibn Ka'b and Ibn Mas'ud, both of them, they concluded in the last lejna of Uthman ibn Affan that it's 114 surahs. So they retracted their earlier positions.
Right. Okay, but they did agree.
In fact, Ubay ibn Ka'b himself, there's nothing clear to show that he believed in chapter 115 and 16.
Okay.
And if there is, he retracted. So what I'm saying, that's different.
I agree with that.
Good.
What I'm saying is, though,
so that's the first view.
Right, okay, let's just target that one first view and then we go on the second view.
No, the second view is the one I take, by the way.
The first view I think is clearly wrong because they clearly argued about it.
No problem. You can make the argument. The second view is the view of a Tabari and the early people, like Abu Amr al-Dani. They say that in order for preservation to happen, all you need is one variant. And he gave an evidence for this. The evidence he gave from the Quran is that if you do a qasam, if you do like an oath, that you have 3 options. Either tahrir al-raqabah, you either have to free a slave, or you have to feed the people, you have to fast 3 days. Yeah? That's in Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5. So the idea is, they said that you can choose one or the other. So the fact that you can choose one or the other, okay, is the same thing with the variants. All you require for the preservation of the Quran, the minimum requirement, is one variant. Let me put this in. Let me show you the implications of this.
Right. Okay.
Let me tell you the implications of this.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, it's commonly known. I'm sure you know that is Surah Al-Fatiha, the first chapter of the Quran. It says, yeah, we have two ways of reciting the third verse, which is Malik Yawmuddin and Malik Yawmuddin.
Yeah.
That the king of the day of judgment and the possessor of the day of judgment.
Yeah.
On this view, all you need for preservation of the Quran to happen is just one of those variants. So in other words, if I don't have in my possession both qira'as, Malik Yawmuddin, which is the possessor of the day of judgment, and Malik Yawmuddin, which is the king of the day of judgment, then still only one would be enough to preserve the Quran. And the evidence for that, they say, is, for example, when we read the Quran in Taraweeh, like in Ramadan right now, every day we read a portion of the Quran, we only really read it with one qira'ah. Some mosques, some mosques they do it in like many qira'ahs, like Muntada mosque. However, like every day they'll do a different qira'ah. The point is that the point I'm making is all that is required is just one variant. So if you're asking me, first of all, the issue of preservation. In terms of preservation, the conservative view of preservation of Quran is only one variant may exist, and that will be it. So that would mean if there's any other variant that's outside of the Quran, that's not part of the final codex or whatever, that could have been a variant which is sanctioned by the Prophet, but there's no requirement for it to be preserved from that perspective.
Okay, but I think that in effect concedes my point, which is that perfect preservation, at least on the second view, isn't perfect.
No, but that's the idea. They would say perfect is a subjective term, right? So we have to specify what we mean.
So what I mean by that, though, is objectively speaking, there is not a single authoritative source, but rather there are many different sources. Your view on whether they're authoritative is, whether you accept the first view or the second view. But ultimately, if you accept the second view, then you would have to concede that it's not perfectly preserved because there are different ones.
No, I mean, it depends on how you define perfect. So they would say that is perfect preservation. That's the argument.
But that's inherently not true. Like no textual manuscript scholar would say it's perfect preservation, right?
The issue,
because there are variants.
Okay, well,
the presence of a variant means that it's not perfectly preserved.
No, but the variant itself is explained from within the tradition.
Right, that's fine. You may re-understand your interpretation of what it means to be perfectly preserved, but from a scholarly perspective, they wouldn't say it's perfectly preserved because there are different variants.
The word, as I said, the word perfect is fraught with subjectivity. So we need to be clear what we're talking about.
So I'm talking about textual criticism, when we're trying to figure out what the original author said and did. Right? If there are different copies that say different things, then we would have to concede that it's not in that scale perfectly preserved. Do you agree?
No, not like that. No, because what they would say that they use the word kamal, which is the Arabic word for like complete. That's, I think, more. It's an easier way to kind of, because otherwise it's subjective. What's perfect, what's not perfect. So
obviously that's going to get out of it.
What I will concede, is that certainly there's a difference of opinion as to what is the minimum requirement for preservation in Islam.
Right.
There are some some scholars who say that all of the variants must be preserved. Okay, and they say therefore the 10 major qira'ahs that we have today, that they must be, all of the variants that the Prophet said must be within those 10. Whereas the early view, which I take, is that actually that's not the case. That in order for preservation to happen, all you only require is one variant.
Right, but what you're talking about here, and I think you summed it up quite well there, is that preservation, not a perfect preservation, because ultimately if it was perfect in the way that we understand it from a scholarly point of view, there would only be one copy.
I'll tell you something, Chris, which I think you're right about. When you do listen to, on prima facie value, when you listen to this kind of, when people say that the Quran word for word, letter for letter, it makes it seem as if there's no variance. I agree with that, and I think that's a mistake on our behalf. That we didn't clarify that early in the da'wah.
Cool,
it's where people in the past, 20, 30 years ago, didn't explain to the people, because this is known to Islamic historians for 1,400 years. You know, textual criticism, for example, some say that, well, Islam doesn't have textual criticism, but the truth is, it's called naqd al-qira'at, or textual criticism of the qira'at. That was there in the early days of Islam. So people that know this field, okay, they will tell you that actually there was a textual criticism tradition in Islam.
Yeah, I agree that there was. I think largely because the companions differed about what their actual.
No, the issue was not with the companions at all.
But they did differ about it, right?
No. The issue is never. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you. Let me make the argument for you.
Okay. Yeah.
If you look at Sahih Bukhari, for example,
Yeah.
you'll find. I'll tell you exactly what you're saying. I'll give you the evidence for it.
Okay.
Abu Darda in Sahih Bukhari, he recites Surah Al-Layl, which is chapter 92 of the Quran. So it's recited in the 10 qira'ahs as وَمَا خَلَقَ ذَكَرُ الْأُنْثَى. Yeah? And who created the male and the female? He says, no, I'm going to read it وَالذَّكَرِ وَالْأُنْثَى. And the male and the female. So it's an oath. God is taking an oath.
yeah.
He says, I'm by the male and the female.
Okay.
He says, I'm not going to recite وَمَا خَلَقَ. He says, I heard it from the Prophet
Yeah.
as وَمَا خَلَقَ ذَكَرَ وَالْأُنْثَى. Yeah? Now, the point is that on this view, you could say that, well, in that case, there would seem to be a difference of opinion between the companion and the rest of them.
Right.
But this is where it's solved. For example, the famous hadith of Umar ibn al-Khattab and Hisham ibn Hakam. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let me finish, please.
Okay.
Because it's on your point. Please, bro.
I'm trying, but
you have to be patient. Please, let me say. What I'm saying is that Umar ibn al-Khattab and Hisham ibn Hakam, hadith is very sahih, it's authentic.
Sure.
That there were Hisham ibn Hakam, who's a companion, he was reciting Surah Al-Furqan, chapter 25 of the Quran. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, as he was being led in the prayer by Hisham ibn Hakam, he said that I heard Hisham ibn Hakam reading the Quran على غير الوجه الذي أقرأنيها رسول الله, on a way that's different to the way the Prophet Muhammad taught me. So he said that, I'm not sure if you come across this.
Right.
Let me finish the hadith.
Okay.
Let me finish the hadith. So he got angry. He said, I got so angry.
Yeah, I've read this one as well.
Yeah, and so he got angry, and then he waited for him to finish the prayer.
Yeah.
He grabbed him.
And he took him to the Prophet Muhammad.
He took him to the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
And then the Prophet Muhammad said, هكذا أنزلت or هكذا
It's been
نزلت.
revealed this way, it's been revealed this way.
Exactly, it's been revealed this way and this way. So it was showing what?
Right.
Showing it goes back to the Umda hadith, which, or the main hadith, which is Unzil Quran ala sab'ati ahruf. The Quran has been revealed in 7
different aruf.
Yeah, beautiful.
Different modes.
Great, you're good, mashallah. You're good.
So my question is then, it seems as if the early companions disagreed about what that was.
Yeah, but then the disagreement was resolved by the Prophet.
It wasn't by the Prophet though.
Well,
it was resolved by Uthman ultimately, right?
No. It was resolved by the Prophet. Because look, I've just given you an example. We can agree, yeah?
Yeah, I agree on that example.
Yeah,
what
right.
I'm saying to you though
Yeah.
is that even after that, there were still arguments among the early companions who knew Muhammad themselves, who were great reciters of the Quran, and yet they had different understandings about what was Quran and what was not Quran. Then Uthman came along and standardized that Quran in your Sahih Hadith.
So there's a degree of truth in what you're saying.
Okay.
The thing is, here's the thing.
I appreciate honesty.
Yeah, there's a degree of truth. There was still, so some Sahaba, some companions, like as I said, Abu Darda, Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, they would recite how they heard the Quran, which might have been different to the way somebody else heard it. But as I said before, they are saying they heard it that way because it's on this harf, on this variant.
Right, but then you have to explain to me, why were they arguing about something if the Prophet made it clear which is acceptable and which isn't?
Okay, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If it was seen as that they are saying something that's other than the Quran, it would have been deemed as kufr, as disbelief in heresy, which it never was. So there was this is why I say there was a degree of truth.
Right.
There was an atmosphere of acceptability.
Right. Okay, but we need to remember here. So.
Come. We are Muslim people are here. Come and stand in their presence.
لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
What I don't understand though is.
It's your Muslim people.
لا إله إلا الله
Muslim people.
لا
I am
إله
not a
إلا الله.
Muslim. I am not a Muslim. I am not a Muslim. I am not a Muslim.
Let's take
I
2 steps
can never
back.
be a Muslim.
Take 2 steps back.
Go to Muslim.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, go to Muslim people. I speak to Muslim
ضاير يا
people.
دونكي
Okay.
ضاير يا
Speak to
حمار
Muslim people.
ضاير يا حمار
Speak to Muslim people.
لا إله إلا الله
Why are you not speaking to Muslim people? Eh? Muslims sent you to me.
مسلم good
Speak to Muslim people.
So.
Speak to Muslim people. Eh? Speak to Muslim people. Why are you coming to me? Why are you coming to me? You have your Muslim people.
ضاير يا دونكي
Go to them and speak to them. Why are you following me?
I've had 116 surahs.
Yeah, but he didn't, like I said, he didn't. That's not an opinion that he kept, and that's not. There's no good.
But at one point he did though.
No,
until
there's no evidence.
was reached.
There's no evidence of that. He had two.
There's a hadith where he complains that he has learned how to recite. He has memorized 70 surahs of the Quran, and he's complaining they don't take all of what he says.
No, there's no evidence. There's no clear evidence that he took 115, 116 as the Quran. Yeah, these were just two du'ats that he put. Du'a al-Qunut, it's called. He put them in his mushaf.
Yeah, he put them in his mushaf. So he was considering Quran, and there were differences about whether or not that should be Quran.
The issue is here's the issue, right? With the companions' masahif, for example, they would write on it. So they would put their notes on it. They were not meant to be the official standard copy. The official standard copy of the Quran was the one that was collated by Uthman. Otherwise, if everyone of their personal copies was meant to...
Wait, but this came before Uthman. Uthman took their copies along with Zayd ibn Qabit, his copy, and then he collated with other materials.
The first one was at the time of Abu Bakr.
Time of Abu Bakr, 634.
Yeah.
And they did that because they were...
I'm sure you have some...
What I'm saying though is that the first time it was written down in Abu Bakr's copy,
yes,
they feared, and this is again in Sahih Hadith, they feared the parts of the Quran could be lost.
Say again?
The parts of the Quran could be lost. Yeah, you're aware of that?
Say again, sorry?
The parts of the Quran could be lost.
At the time of Abu Bakr?
Abu Bakr, yeah.
Yeah, but at the time of Abu Bakr, it wasn't, I mean, they weren't really concerned, they're hyper-fixated about the Quran as a physical copy because there were so many hafaz. People have memorized the Quran.
There was a fear that that word you used. Sorry,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about 634. Yeah.
All right. So what you're talking about is that when Umar ibn al-Khattab and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq were having a conversation, and Umar was on the side, Umar the second caliph, Abu Bakr didn't want to do. He didn't want to even have a book.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what he's talking about. Yeah. So Umar said no. He made those arguments.
So what I'm saying is that he made it.
But he also made an argument from the Quran. So the Quran calls itself kitab.
Yeah.
So he says because what Abu Bakr was afraid of here was less to do with the preservation issue. It was more to do with the fact that he did something. He would do something that the Prophet Muhammad didn't do. So Abu Bakr Siddiq, in order to not do so, Umar al-Khattab had to argue textually through the Quran in order to show that actually. In order to show, that it was legitimate. So he said that the word kitab is used in reference to the Quran,
right?
And so therefore you can make it into a book.
Right. Okay, but my understanding though is that you're right. He was talking about how. My understanding of that hadith is twofold, but the most important part is that he is saying that the memorizers of the Quran are in fear of dying in battle, and therefore parts of the Quran could be lost. We can go. Do you want me to read the hadith?
No. There was that as well.
Okay.
But
so is it not true that there's a part of, I think it might be Surah 9, it might be some other surah, where there was only one person who remembered it? I think there's a hadith where it says that we only got that one thing from that one person.
No. There was what you're maybe referring to. I don't know if you're referring to this. You can read out if you have it. What I'm talking about, basically, at the time of Abu Bakr, when Zayd ibn Harith. Zayd ibn Thabit was commissioned to go and basically be the head of the
palm trees and the stones.
But also he said that for each verse there had to be 2 witnesses to each verse.
Okay. Sure.
So for each verse there had to be 2 witnesses.
Sure.
So that's why there was one particular verse because the Prophet had made a specific supplication where Zayd ibn Harith only took it from one person, but it was understood by everyone else. So basically the Quran as we have it today, you could say that the consensus of the companions on 2 occasions were on it. The first time was at the time of Abu Bakr, and the second time was at the time of Uthman. The reason why it was necessary, the reason why it's important at the time of Uthman, is because Islam had spread to different nations.
And they were talking about how those further north, and Sham, and
Azerbaijan and these places.
They were talking about those who had their codices there, their recitations were different from what they knew.
So that
they worried about
bring them all, burn them.
Bring them. Yeah, you're familiar with
of course.
So my understanding is that because there was a process of taking Quranic materials, compiling them into Uthmanic copy in the Qurayshi dialect, and then burning all other Quranic materials, there is a clear and recorded and quite honest example of where what once was considered Quran is now not long
Where's
not
that?
the Quran.
Which one? Which verse are you talking about?
Okay, so Uthman, when he collected, what was he collecting? Was it Quranic
No,
materials?
he wasn't collecting. At this point, it was not a matter of collecting.
Okay.
Okay, no, that was at the time of Abu Bakr. The time of
Okay,
Abu Bakr,
so I'm talking about Uthman now. That's what
Oh yeah,
I'm talking
Uthman
about
wasn't collecting parchments and.
Yeah, no, Abu Bakr was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What I'm saying is, Uthman though, at this time when they were differing about it up north, yeah, there would have been codices, Ubay ibn Ka'b, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that differed. He would have taken those, and he would have also taken Zayd bin Thabit, that copy as
Are
well.
you talking about Uthman?
Uthman, so yeah, Uthman.
No, he wasn't doing any of that. All he was doing, he got Zayd ibn Thabit again.
Yeah, he did, yeah, and he got others.
No, he got all others, of course.
Yeah,
It was
he
a
got
legend.
all-
It was,
yeah,
it was called a legend. It was a commission.
Sure,
yeah?
sure. He got all the different Quranic materials. He then, whenever there were differences, he would choose the Qurayshi dialect. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah.
another issue. Okay, the
Okay.
Qurayshi dialect,
And
yes.
then whatever else
Yeah.
was left that was not in his copy, he burnt.
Okay, yeah, no, you get it. In a way,
was
you're
that
right.
Quranic materials? Was that Quranic
that
materials?
he burnt?
Yeah, that some people would have thought it's Quran.
could have been some part of it.
Right,
Some
okay,
people.
so that is
Yeah, yeah.
enough to establish
Some-
my argument.
you're right, some
which is that
people.
the Quran,
No, no,
as
no,
it would
but,
be understood by
Chris.
Muslims, is not perfectly
No,
preserved.
no, here's the thing. The Quran says, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا هُمْ فِي شِقَاقٍ. If they believe in what you guys believe in, then they're on the right path. And if they don't, then they're astray. You guys is the companions, because it's a second person, and it's the primary audience. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, عليكم بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين من بعدي عضوا عليه بالنواجذ. That upon you is to follow my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided caliphs after me, bite upon it with your molar teeth. And in another hadith he mentioned, okay, whatever. The
Yeah,
point
just
is,
gets it, yeah.
the point is that there's a difference between the companions, okay, who we believe God has given the stamp of approval to in many verses of the Quran.
But they differ though.
No, I'm not saying that. What my argument is that the variance that existed within
Yeah.
the variances within the companion circle.
Okay, so there were
was
variances within the companion
Yes,
circle.
of course.
Okay,
So,
yeah, there were.
Those variances
Okay.
were acceptable to the companions.
Okay.
Yeah, they were acceptable.
But didn't they argue about it? But I mean, like
Well, after the Prophet's death.
after Prophet's death, yeah. Wait,
okay,
yeah,
look.
yeah, in 652, at the
So,
time of Uthman.
when you say
al-Khalaf.
when they argued about it, what do you mean by that? Can
What
you,
I mean by that is,
Yeah.
I can get the hadith
No,
out.
no,
as
no.
well.
Do you mean when you say argue by it?
Yeah, they say, what was it? Oh,
What
save
you
us! Oh, save the nation, lest we end
Oh,
up.
Adrik Ummatak. No, that's not the companions. So that's what you're talking here is not the companions arguing with themselves. This is Uthman being told
Yeah.
that this is Uthman being told
Yeah.
that because Islam has spread.
Yeah, yeah, up north, yeah. Yeah.
These guys who have newly become Muslim
Yeah.
just learned the Arabic language, Persia, this place, that place.
Yeah.
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 They're reading in a certain way.
Yeah.
So quickly before they start reading it wrong and it
Yeah.
spreads wrong, bring all of their codices, burn it, and just have one standardized version.
Right. So they were saying things that were substantially different enough to bicker about.
Those people that are newly converted to
so-
Islam, of
well,
course.
Well, we already know that Ubay ibn Ka'b and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, their
No, but
codices were up north.
we mentioned.
Remember that?
Sorry.
They were for that. So
No, but they were.
I think Ubay ibn Ka'b may have been from Kufa, I think, or
No,
Basra. I might be
These
wrong.
guys were all at
Yeah.
the time of the Prophet. They were companions.
Yeah, those guys were.
No,
yeah.
but
yeah.
I think we need to kind of get this right?
Okay.
What I'm saying to you is, yes, the companions. One companion sometimes had a word. For example, Malik and Malik, owner and king, whatever,
Right.
which was different to another companion.
Okay, well that's the Kiba'ah. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
we have
no,
the
but that's where it
Haskell
comes
after.
from.
Well, no, because I'm talking about the Haruf. Because I think they differed on the Haruf.
No, I'm saying is the Ahruf
Yeah.
inform the Qira'at.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the Haruf, I think they disagreed about it with.
Say again?
The Haruf, I can't
Ahruf,
sorry,
yeah, it's fine, yeah.
I think they disagreed with.
What? Who?
Because they had different codices with different surahs and all.
No. The point you're making about different surahs,
Yeah.
the numbers of the surahs,
Yeah.
the two examples you've given,
Yeah.
as I've said, they were reversed.
Yeah, I
they're
know
no
that
longer
later
examples.
they changed their mind.
The
I get
better
that.
example, I'll
Yeah.
make your argument for you. The better example is on select words.
Okay.
So, for example, I've just given you an example of in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. Yeah. Oh, Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Abu Darda, where he recites it differently. I'm saying that he heard it from the Prophet differently to the way someone else heard it, but because that's where the Prophet had it two ways.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with the hadith. I've read the hadith.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that yes, I think that there was 7 Ahruf, but they differed on what that was enough so that Uthman had to come in and standardize the Quran. That's what I'm saying.
The differences on the Ahruf didn't
Okay.
really emerge until after the companions.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
were they arguing about in the time of Uthman?
No, they weren't arguing. The companions were not arguing about
Let's
this.
just save us before we become like
No,
the Christians and
adrik
the Jews.
ummatak, this hadith. Save your ummah.
Yeah. People,
Adrik ummatak. Save your ummah before they become like the Jews and the Christians. قبل أن يختلفوا اختلاف اليهود والنصارى.
And that was for Uthman to go and collect and
No, but
standardize what the Quran is.
he's talking about the new Muslims
Right.
that have come into Islam. They've just learned Arabic. They were reciting it wrong.
Wait, but the question is which is correct? And that was what
That's
Uthman
wrong.
was trying to establish.
No.
He took all the different
Okay,
Quranic
but
materials,
I understand it.
and then he was saying, is this correct? Is
Chris,
this correct?
Chris,
Yeah.
here's the issue.
Okay.
Those new guys that come into Islam, did they meet the Prophet?
I don't think that's necessarily what that's referring to.
No, it definitely was.
I think that's referring
No,
to
this-
Ubay ibn Ka'b's codex.
No,
and I
no
think
way. No way.
Well, it would make sense, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't, because
why wasn't it? Why
no,
wouldn't it?
definitely not.
But they have different levels of surahs. They
No,
have different Qurans.
let me tell you why it's definitely not
Okay,
referring to that.
why?
All right.
Despite the fact they were in that area.
No, أدرك أمتك قبل أن يختلفوا اختلاف اليهود والنصارى.
You have to translate.
Which is that
Yeah.
this is the hadith
Right.
that save your nation. Basically, this is a good translation. Save your nation, i.e. the Muslim, the Ummah, before they start differing the difference of the Jews and the Christians.
Yeah.
This was at a time where Islam spread to Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Now it was a new conquest.
Yeah.
It was a fresh conquest.
Right, I understand that point of view, but what I'm saying is, though, is the two companions of Muhammad, who were considered master reciters of the Quran,
but they were not,
had different codices in that area.
Are you telling me that Uthman is referring to Ibn Mas'ud?
Well, he would have at least took his codex at that time.
No, because Ibn Mas'ud's in the chain of narration of Uthman's codex. They both have the same chain of narration, and they both teach they both teach the same students. For example, Uthman ibn Affan teaches Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, and so does Ibn Mas'ud. So that's why you'll find both of those companions, the tabi'i or the student that they have identical Quran.
The Qurans that they had in their codices were different.
No, I'm telling you they're the
Uthman
same.
collected these along with others.
I've got reference to this.
Can you show me?
Yeah. So
Can you show me? I appreciate that.
I don't have it with my hands. It's not even in English. No, it's not in English. It's not been translated. It's in a book called Tabaqat al-Qurra. It's in a book.
I don't know. Okay, all right.
No,
fair
but
enough. I'm
that's
saying.
not fair on me, is it?
I know, but you can't use it as evidence.
No,
and then
I can't use it. No, I
If I
can't use
can't
it.
read it, I don't know.
No, but I'm just telling you can.
Okay, well,
the thing
tell me what it is, and I'll go research it.
Chris,
Tell me what it is.
you have to rely on us to translate the Quran anyway.
Yeah,
All right, so why don't you rely on me to translate the source? I don't get it.
but you haven't translated this, so that's the problem.
All right, here's the issue. The book is written.
Any text in Arabic, you wouldn't understand it anyway.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's not fair. It's going to
Okay,
stump
alright.
the conversation.
Wait, that's
so what
fine.
I'm saying
Just
is,
tell
I'll
me
give you
the reference.
the reference is a book by Ibn al-Jazari, referred as called Tabaqat al-Qurra, which is the stages of narrators. In it, he mentions that Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami was taught by Uthman ibn Affan and Ibn Mas'ud. That's why they have the same chain of narration. They have the same chain of narration.
Right, how does that relate to my point?
No, because the point you said was, you said that Uthman ibn Affan, when he was being told, he wasn't saying it by the way, أدرك أمتك قبل أن يختلفوا اختلاف اليهود والنصارى, that save your nation before they come like the Jews and the Christians, i.e. that their books become unpreserved, like you admitted your Bible's unpreserved.
Not perfectly.
Not perfectly preserved, whatever. You admitted it. So he's saying before
that's
that
what
becomes.
Christians believe.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, what they believe. It's not all of them. But say for example that he said that it was said to him. Yeah, I'm saying number one, historical context. This hadith was at the time of Uthman al-Affan, which is some 25 years after the Prophet's death.
About 652.
Number two, this was when the Azerbaijan was being conquered. Yeah, and that's why new converts were coming into Islam.
Okay.
Number three, it's the chain of narration of Ibn Mas'ud is the same chain of narration of Uthman al-Affan when it comes to the Quran. So they have the same, they don't differ. And the evidence
But they have different surahs though.
No, they
That's my
don't.
point.
I'm saying they don't. For example, you know what, if I recite now in the Quran, in the mosque, Hafs and Asim, which is the most, as you know.
Yeah, it's a qira'at though. That comes later. I'm not interested in that part.
No, I get it. But I'm saying that qira'ah comes from the same chain as Ibn Mas'ud. Ibn Mas'ud is actually the main guy in the chain.
Right, that's fine.
But basically, I'm saying to you is Ibn Mas'ud, if he believed that the Quran's 112 surahs, not 114, then why is it that
10, but yeah.
112 surahs,
Okay.
not 114,
Sure.
not Falaq and Nas, the two. If he believed that, then why is it that the chain of narration goes back to Ibn Mas'ud? He believes in 114.
What I'm saying is, at one point they argued about it. I then believe after that, after Uthman had standardized
So you agree?
they agree with it.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying that.
Do you understand that?
No, I understand. But
Yeah.
what it was is
Yeah.
there
Well,
was.
even if you admit that they didn't disagree on it,
Yeah,
after
yeah.
Muhammad has died,
Yeah, okay.
then there's no authority to be able to determine which is the
I'm
correct
happy
view.
to concede the fact that Ibn Mas'ud,
Yeah,
Ibn Mas'ud at one point
Yeah.
didn't believe that Falaq and Nas.
and Ubay ibn Ka'b as well.
Ubay ibn Ka'b is more controversial, I have to say, yeah, because basically his codex had two du'ats after. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay, yeah, I know that if you don't consider them Quran, you consider them dua. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But what I mean is because
I
people.
like the way you said du'at there. You said that was good
I like
pronunciation.
it. I try. I do try.
You're good, you're good, huh?
What I'm saying is that because they disagreed on these things, it makes no sense to say perfect preservation
no,
because
but-
you don't know what Muhammad himself would have said because Muhammad had died at this point.
So is your qualm only with Falaq and Nas?
No,
Chapter
my
12.
Quran is very specific. Only
what?
with the term perfect.
Okay, all right.
Do you understand?
What I'm saying to you is,
If you say to me, actually, we
Yeah,
can infer what was likely meant, we have good reasons for believing that,
All right.
then I can say, okay.
Let me-
but if you tell me
yeah,
that
yeah.
there has been no changes and no variations, then I have
No,
a
no,
problem
no,
with that.
we-
But I
we-
think you've agreed on that. I
no,
think-
no, no. We're saying. Let me be very clear about my position here,
Okay.
and this is the position of the early ones. Yeah, I'm saying is that first of all, when the Quran was being revealed, there were certain ayat
Yeah.
that had been revealed in more than one way. It doesn't change the narrative, but at all. Like, yani, all this Quran don't change the narrative at all. The story doesn't change.
Well,
No, it doesn't change the narrative
how
at
do you
all.
know that?
I know that because I've been through all of them.
Yeah, but we don't know necessarily what all those aruf are, do we? Or do
No,
you
no,
saying that we do know?
no, no. I'm saying that there's only a superficial cesspool of what it can be.
Right.
So what I'm saying is it's not that many things it can be. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I'll explain that to you. That's a different conversation. But the point is that the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in select verses, he said it in one way and another way. Yeah, like Malik, owner, king. It's not a big difference. Yeah.
Well, that,
example.
they came later. You're talking about the difference between what the Hafs would have recited.
No, no, no.
But the Walsh would
No,
have
no. But
recited
what I'm
as.
saying is that Hafs and Warsh
Yeah.
or Nafa, in fact, or Asim and Nafa, yeah,
Yeah.
because Hafs and Nafa as a teacher,
Yeah, yeah.
Hafs is a student,
Yeah,
Warsh is a student, Nafa as a teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
Nafa would have taken it from the two available options. This is called ikhtiyar al-qari. So, for example, yeah, Ibn Mas'ud would have told Hafs, Asim, it's can be recited Malik and Malik, but obviously he can't recite both, so he chooses Malik or Malik. Both of them the Prophet said, so he just chooses one.
Right. Okay.
So there is a choice,
Right.
but it's a choice
Yeah.
with things which both the Prophet said. Do you get it?
I think that you can have a way of knowing what was likely said and what was likely revealed in most cases, but I think there are some cases in which you don't. In which case, it makes no sense to say that the Quran has been perfectly preserved.
Your issue.
Do you understand with that, though?
I know what you're saying, but what I'm saying to you
But
is
you
that.
see, let's go back to what you said
Yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
because you talked about the two different ways, and you said there's one way which is that actually if there's any variance whatsoever, then it cannot be kalam Allah. That's a problem. And then the other way, which is the way that you hold, is the view that actually, as long as there's one qira'at,
Kalam Allah. Sorry?
word of Allah.
No, what were you saying? What was Kalam Allah?
So you gave two options, yeah? The first one is there's a school of Islam that says if there's any variations, then that's a problem. Is that fair to summarize?
It's not a school. It's just a.
Okay,
it's-
well, a way of what
Okay, it's an opinion.
some scholars hold that. Okay, an opinion of scholars. Another one is actually no, we don't hold to that.
say the first one again.
So the idea that there cannot be any variations.
No, that's not what they say.
Okay, so what do they
Okay,
say?
the first group of scholars say,
Yeah.
which is the Qur'an and the Mutakallimun,
Okay.
they say that all of the variations must be preserved in order for the Quran to be preserved.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
So if anything is lost or if anything.
Yes.
Right, okay, that
Yes.
makes sense. Okay. So
The
I think
second
that-
opinion says
Okay.
that only one variation must be kept in order for the Quran to be preserved.
So on the first view, I think that's evidently not perfectly preserved because there are things that I think are or were supposed to be in the Quran that are not in the Quran.
You can make the argument. You can you can't.
I would be convinced by it.
No. You can make the argument, but
Right.
I'm convinced with the second view anyway.
Okay, that's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. I understand that. But I think it's important for Muslims to know that that first opinion
Yeah.
is wrong.
For
I think it's quite clear.
no, I mean-
Perfect preservation. Perfect.
No, but the thing
Yeah.
is, here's my point, Chris. These two people differed on the term perfect or perfection. Because the first group of scholars said in order for there to be perfect preservation, all the variants must be preserved.
Right.
The second group said
Yeah.
no, only one variant.
Yeah.
So for them, perfection was one variant preservation.
Is there an example in the early Ummah, or among the companions,
Yeah.
where they believe that the Quran as they had it had been perfectly preserved.
When you say perfectly, what do you mean?
What I mean is that option one. What you just said, option one.
No, that's the point.
That's interesting. Right?
I have not seen it. I've not come across it.
Okay,
so what I'm saying is,
but what I mean is that I think there's a problem here in the park.
The early days. The early days. Sorry, the early days.
Yeah,
sorry.
What I'm saying is,
go on.
Is that Muslims seem to think that the Quran has never been changed.
No, but we're not saying it has been changed.
Well, I'm saying that there have been parts that have been lost.
No. Okay, that's different.
Okay, but that affects your version one.
No,
Do you see what I mean?
No, let me tell you.
Okay.
Let me explain it. Changed and lost are two different things. The Quran, if we say, look, if we say all the variations, all of the variations of the Quran, like when the Prophet said, "Nuzul al-Quran ala sab'ati ahruf," 7 variations. Is it conceivable on the second view that every single word must be said in more than one way? Some say no, it's not required. So for example, once again, if I were to say Malik Yawmuddin, owner of the Day of Judgment, that's enough. I don't need to say more for the Quran.
I understand that view.
Yeah?
That's fair.
So if for example, let me give you a hypothetical just to make this clear. If the Qira'ah saying Malik Yawmuddin, which is 6 out of 10 by the way, 6 out of 10 Qira'ah. If Malik Yawmuddin wasn't there, on the second view, the Quran would still be preserved. On the first view, the Quran would not be preserved. Do you get it?
I agree.
Yeah.
So I think the problem here then is that there are many Muslims who hold to the first view, not the second. And I just want to make it clear that the first view is wrong. Okay. Because you cannot say...
That doesn't have... Even if you go...
Yeah, that's no it. I think that's it. I think we actually reach a consensus there.
No problem.
Cool.
If that's good. Because if you say that the first view, which is that all the variants must be there, blah, 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 and the second view, which is that only one variant has to be there, what we would say is that in order for something to have creedal disproving implications, religious disproving implications, then the second view would have to be the one that's attacked, not the first. The first view is not sufficient. The first view is just a view of some scholars that came after. The ones who are closer to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like At-Tabari and Abu Amr al-Dani and others.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They didn't believe that.
I agree. Yeah, it seems to me from what I've seen from the early Ummah, they didn't have the idea that there was some sort of nothing has been lost whatsoever. Everything is preserved as all the different ways that it was recited. Yes. I don't find that. I find the second view, which is what you've mentioned.
Yeah. But so that's what we would consider that perfect preservation. Let me tell you why.
Wait, the second version.
Yeah. Let me tell you why. At-Tabari makes this argument, and Abu Amr al-Dani makes the same argument. He says, for example, I'll give you the same example. For example, if I done an oath, if I done an oath in Islam, and I have to recompense that oath. Now, when I have to recompense that oath, I have 3 options: freeing a slave, number 1, or fasting 3 days, or feeding poor people. Now, because God tells us you got 3 options, 1, 2, or 3, if I do one of those, this is how At-Tabari argues. If you do one of those, have I done what is required of me in a perfect way? Yes, I have.
Yes.
I don't need to do all 3.
That makes sense, but that's not in the context of.
So At-Tabari is arguing that this is what I'm saying. He has a different definition of perfection. Okay, he's saying in order for perfect preservation to happen, all you need is just one qira'ah.
Okay.
All you need is 1.
Okay. I think we've probably done pretty well here because I think that I managed to get an answer out of you, and I think.
This has always been my position.
That was fine. I just wanted to be more known, basically.
No problem. What I'm saying is it's better for us. Because now because the thing is now that the challenge will be this, right? The challenge on the other side will be to prove that any variation that has happened the source of it ultimately was not the Prophet Muhammad. So for example, Malik versus Malik, owner versus king. How can you prove that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was reciting Surah Al-Fatiha to the companions, that he didn't recite it at least one time in his life, Malik Yawmuddin, which is owner of the Day of Judgment, another time Malik. We are saying the Prophet in the Hadith, the Hadith says that Untitled Quran ala sab'ati ahruf. Quran has been revealed on 7 ahruf, or modes, no problem, Why the Prophet said for taysir, to make it easy for the people, like the Shaykh al-Fani and so on. So some words here and there, which the Prophet said two ways, and the Prophet even said that he asked Allah and Angel Gabriel gave him those. It's called Hadith al-Istizaza. So what I'm saying is, the challenge will be to you then, since we finished, you've agreed with me. The challenge is, can you prove that any of the variations in the Qira'at al-Ashar, for example, in the 10 Qira'as, or elsewhere, the source of it was not Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asking the angel and so on?
I would say that I'm not so interested in the Qur'an because I think the Qur'an is too late. I want to know about the Haruf. I want to know.
I'm talking about the variations. I didn't say Qira'at.
Okay.
Any variation word.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But we have that Qur'an because of Hafs and we have it from.
No, what I'm saying is, my question to you is, how can you substantiate, you say that any variation in the Quran that we see through manuscripts, through hadiths, or through qira'at, or through any other way, any variation historically identifiable, the source of it originally was not Prophet Muhammad based on this hadith?
I think there are other criteria to demonstrate that second option as well. So first of all, we know from early traditions, early Sahih
do you see what I'm saying, yeah?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think there's other ways of doing it. I agree that would be one way of doing it, but I think there's other ways. So I would say another way is if you can demonstrate that certain parts of what was once Quran have now been lost from the Quran, then that would be another way.
No, but that's what I'm saying is, that's not true. That's only on the first view. No, because that's only in the first view.
But you would have to have at least one version of it though, right? Because you're saying as long as you have one qira'at of it, then it doesn't matter.
That doesn't work. There's two reasons why that doesn't work.
Okay.
Number one is because, as we said, some variations, yes, those variations were acceptable within the Sahaba and with the sanctioning of the Prophet.
Okay.
Number two is we believe in abrogation as well. So these two things are, that's why you can't say, well, it's mentioned here in this manuscript, so it's mentioned there in this book, that there's another verse here. Say, okay, I'll bring that other verse and say that's possibly part of what was originally sent to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Possibly, also possibly not.
Yeah, possibly
So for
not.
example, you know about the verses of stoning and breastfeeding?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is considered by some narrations that this should have been in the Quran. I know you're ultimately going to say that, but I don't see any reason to believe that was the case. But wasn't there also a hadith where some people said actually this should have been in the Quran, but now
no, that's not what the hadith says.
Okay, what does the hadith say?
It used to be part of the Quran. The stoning one used to be part of the Quran, and then it was marfu'a.
But didn't the hadith say that now he fears that it's been lost?
No, it doesn't say. No, it was It's consensus that it was part of the Quran.
Okay, but it no longer is.
Yeah, that's been abrogated from the Quran.
Okay, so
the stoning, الشيخ والشيخة, فرجموا كل واحد منهم البتة, whatever, that verse has been taken out.
Right. So there are parts that were once considered Quran that are no longer Quran.
Yeah, the Quran says that.
So the Quran has been perfectly preserved.
No, but the Quran says that itself. But
if I write a book that tells you I'm going to remove page 3, by removing page 3 I've still changed the book.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
The Quran has a mechanism of that. So when in chapter 2 verse 106.
Right, that's fine. I agree.
Let me just finish. Okay. In chapter 2 verse 106, when it says ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها نأتي بخير منها أو مثلها, that we don't abrogate a verse or remove it.
We bring something similar or better.
Right. So there's a mechanism.
Okay, I understand that, but that in effect is agreeing with what I'm saying, because now you're saying, well, actually, it isn't perfectly preserved, but that's okay because that's what we should expect.
What you're saying is, all you have to do is find an example of something which is not in for example, the Qira'at al-Ashar or something, right? Yeah. To show that it's been lost. What I'm saying is that's not sufficient. Why that's not sufficient on the second view? It's not sufficient.
Because of abrogation.
No, that's one reason.
Okay.
Abrogation one. Okay. The other reason is because on the second view, not everything had to be preserved. Only one variation had to be preserved.
Right, but is there any other variation of the verses of stone feeding?
No, that's abrogated. That's abrogated.
Yeah, but you see, that to me is just confirming.
No, that's abrogated by the companions. They said it themselves.
You understand that? You gave me a challenge. I said, well, here's an example of something that was in Quran and now isn't.
No, what I'm saying is
there is no recitation of it. And your response is, well, there's a principle of abrogation that explains that. Yeah. And I'm saying, in which case you're actually agreeing with me. You're just saying it's okay because
but what I'm saying is your criterion is not a good one. Because what I'm saying is the Quran itself says in chapter 2 verse 106 that there are some verses that have been removed from it or been forgotten from it. It says that.
Yeah. So it's not perfectly preserved.
No, I don't think you understand what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, but you're trying to argue that because you have the principle of abrogation, that this is a way of getting out of the way of saying that it's not perfectly preserved.
No.
But it cannot be perfectly preserved.
We're going back to a subjective word here. Perfectly. What I'm saying is,
I think perfectly means that there's one copy perfectly preserved. That's one.
That's your okay. Great. You think that?
No. That's the definition from textual variant of scholars.
No, but I don't care what they say. Why should we care about what men say about what perfect preservation is.
What?
Yeah, white men, yeah.
Why are you making a
No,
racial?
yeah, it's white.
Why are you making a racial?
No, it's a racial issue because
Don't leave white or black. It doesn't matter.
I can say what I want. Sorry to say. What, you're upset about that? White men, yeah, white. What's the problem?
Do you have a problem with white men?
I don't have a problem with white men. I've said that it's just because, for example, a
Yeah,
white
but
man
if I said we should ignore the opinion of brown people, that would be considered.
I didn't say ignore. I said, why should we be forced to accept a definition of a white man? Why should we be forced for that?
Well, I'm not saying you're forced. I'm saying scholarship.
No, that's not. It's white scholarship, Western scholarship. Why should we, the
what's wrong
Muslims,
with
we have our own scholarship, we have our own tradition.
Right,
Why should we be pigeonholed? Why should we be forced
Okay,
to
so you
accept
reject
what?
Western scholarship.
Pardon?
Do you reject Western
No,
scholarship? So you affirm Western scholarship.
Is it a matter of rejection?
Well, yeah,
of,
because you just said
affirming?
that why should we even consider it?
No.
You said
Let me be clear.
Right, okay.
Just because a white man says something, it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, I know
If
that.
a
I
white
definitely
man,
know
for
that.
example, if I get a Cambridge dictionary, sorry, if I get a Cambridge dictionary and I open it up and it says, give me the word fear. And it says the Cambridge Dictionary says the word fear means X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
The person who wrote the Cambridge Dictionary is a white man. Okay.
Sure.
You can see that in the back of the editorial process.
Yeah, but
now, just because you bring me that dictionary definition, I don't need to be forced to believe that that's what it means because a white man wrote it.
Okay.
So what I'm
No one
saying
ever
is,
said
if
that.
you said to me, what I'm saying, you said that perfect preservation means this according to textual scholarship.
Yeah.
What you actually mean is, according to Western textual scholarship, which is dominated by white men.
Doesn't matter if it's dominated by white men.
No,
It doesn't matter if it's dominated by black men
No, it does matter.
or Asian
No,
men.
it does matter. Why should I?
Why have you racialized this? I don't understand.
No, why not?
Why not?
Is there a problem with saying white men? It's a fact.
You're
Yeah,
racializing scholarship.
I don't care. Call me whatever you want to call me. If you consider that racism, consider it racist. I don't care.
Yeah, but
It's a
man,
fact.
Why do
It's a
that?
fact.
Why do that?
Why not?
Why not just okay? Would you accept a white scholar as much as you would accept an Arabic scholar who's brown? Would you accept
Yes,
them as
but
equal?
what I'm saying is, what I wouldn't accept.
Wouldn't.
Did I say I wouldn't?
You said no.
I said yeah.
You went yeah.
This guy
Then you
said
looked
yeah,
at me.
he said he thinks
no,
it's
you
wrong.
went yeah. They went no.
No, I
So
think
it's okay,
you're
so-
not listening.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, just because a group of, for example, the UN, they have the 30 articles of the, what do you call it, the human rights law.
Sure.
Okay, this was written by white men.
Okay.
So if you say to me human rights is defined by the 30 articles of UN resolution,
Okay.
I say, for me, morality is not defined by what the white man decides.
That sounds awfully like you're not trusting it because they're white.
No. It's why should white people have a hegemony on the rest of the world?
It doesn't matter their skin color.
No, it does matter.
Their skin color matters.
No, it does
Wait,
matter.
does that mean that
It does matter. Why should a white man?
if I was a scholar of Quranic studies, right? If
Why
I'm
should
not,
a
but if I
white man
was,
have-
Would that mean that my skin color invalidates that?
Did I say that?
Well, yeah, you kind of said that
No, I didn't say
white
that.
people, that
say
scholarship
that.
is dominated by white people.
No.
So you shouldn't
What I'm
trust
saying is this. No,
Western scholarship.
no, I didn't say that at all. I didn't say that at all. You're
that
lying.
what he said?
You're lying. You're clearly lying.
You said
You're
that
clearly lying.
Western scholarship
You're
is
lying.
made up of the majority of white people,
No,
and because
no. What I
the
said is-
majority
what I
of
said
white,
is clear.
you shouldn't trust it.
Did I say that? Well, it's on camera. If I said that, then they could catch me out. No problem. Go on, call me racist. Do what you want. Call the police. Call the police. Do what you want. Sorry. What were you talking about?
I don't know. He brought it up. He said
No.
like white people. I'm like, what?
No. It is. I made a simple
white
statement,
people
and you
and
took it, and tried to make it racial this and racial that.
No, you made it racial by saying it.
It is. I said, why should
No, you
I?
just said. I said Western.
My question to you
scholarship
was
is-
one: why should I be forced to accept?
No one's forcing you anything.
All right, great.
No one said force.
That's good. So in that case,
Right. Do you
go
accept
back
Western scholarship?
when it's right?
Okay. Nothing to do with race, though. Yeah.
Have I said this?
Well, because you were saying it's dominated by white men.
Yeah, no. But if white people talk about black people's history, then there's a question here. Why should a
There's
white man?
nothing wrong with people of different
No.
colours
If a
talking about
white
different
man
things.
speaks about black people's history, for example, in Africa, they've never lived in the country. They haven't even.
So they can't talk about it
They can
because
talk.
they're white.
No, they can talk about it.
Okay.
But they're going to have limitations as white people in the West. They're going to have those limitations. And we.
But only because they've never been there, not because they're white.
Yes, it's not because they're skin colour, it's because of the
Don't
geography.
Don't say skin colour then. Just say.
Okay, thank you for your advice. Thank you for your advice.
Yeah, but
Going back to
dude,
your point.
all right.
No, hold on. This is very important. If I, for example,
Should we stop talking about race?
It's up to you, but you're the one who
Let's
brought it
just
up.
stop talking about race.
You did
now,
bring
man.
it up.
You did bring it
I
up.
said, why should I be forced
Yeah.
to
accept Western scholarship that's dominated by white people?
Yeah, why
That's
should
what you
I?
said.
That is the genuine question. I shouldn't
I have
be.
to go by that.
Why do I have to go by that except for that?
Dude, I don't care what someone's skin colour is.
Okay, good.
I don't understand why
I
you
don't
put
care
it
what you say, but
What's going on?
yeah, West, yeah.
He said he doesn't trust Western scholarship because it's dominated by white men.
Yeah, I don't think he meant because of colour of skin.
Yeah, it's not the causative reason.
Okay, so it's not race.
The cause is not the pigmentation of your skin or lack thereof in your case. Yeah,
Sure.
it's not the fact that you're white and
Okay, so it's not
the
to do.
Prophet ﷺ told us very clearly. There's no difference between a white man and a black man.
Except for in Western scholarship.
Sorry.
Except for in Western scholarship, because that's what you said.
What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
just because you have a hegemony, because you said
On
scholarship.
race, apparently.
See, now you're forcing it up on me. He's poisoning the
No,
world.
that's what you said. You said white people.
White people,
Yes.
right now,
In Western scholarship, that's what you talked about.
Yes.
Right.
If white people, it could be black people, could be brown people, Western people.
Wait.
Let's use the word.
I'd rather not talk about people's colour.
Bro,
but
I don't
you
care.
keep doing
I
it.
don't care what you care. Well, I said my
Okay,
statement. You
alright.
can do what you want with it. Honestly, call me what you want. I don't care.
All right. Well, let's get out
Look,
of this because
the point is this:
Yeah.
perfect preservation.
Yeah.
We have our own definitions of it.
Right. Which
You have
does
your
not
own.
meet the scholarly interpretation.
The
of
white man's interpretation. No, the white man's.
Now do you believe
No,
it?
there you have it.
I gave him every opportunity to get out
No,
of it. I gave him every opportunity.
It's a subjective term. Look,
What is subjective?
perfect is subjective.
No. If you would,
It's not like 2 + 2 = 4.
With textual variance, textual criticism.
What does perfect mean?
It means that there is one copy of something that
According
we
to
know
who?
comes
According
from
to
one
who?
author.
According to who?
According to anyone who studies textual variance.
Like who?
Any scholars of
Give me
textual
one.
variance. Dr. Daniel Brubaker.
It's a white man. No, not white. No,
Come on,
hold on.
Man, you're digging yourself a hole.
No,
Just
he's
get
a
out of
white
it.
Islamophobe.
Just get
Well,
out.
hold on.
He's a white Islamophobe.
He is a white Islamophobe who's appeared in David Wood's channel. You're giving me him as a source.
So
Why
now
should I
you're
accept
saying,
this?
What do you mean? Why should you accept it? It's academia. Why do you not accept academia?
What? Because a white man wrote it, I have to believe in it.
No, any colour.
Okay, any color. If it
You
was
do
black,
know that Dr. Yasser Qadi studies, right? Like I think he studies at University of Rice. I think it might be a different one. You're not saying that you would accept him because of the colour of his skin.
I
right?
don't
You wouldn't say
care
that.
about him or anyone else. I'm saying that the
Only
word.
if they're white.
Look, excuse me. The word perfect.
Okay.
Let's forget about race now. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to
Good.
get out of that.
I don't need to get out of that. I've said what I said. I've been saying
Stand
this
by
from
your words.
2012. Yeah. I've been talking about. There is an issue with race here. There is an issue with race.
There's nothing, race has nothing
Because
to do
there's a
with it.
post-colonial reality, yeah, where whiteness is actually something which is a part of the discourse.
Whiteness.
Yes, whiteness, the skin color itself. In my country, where I'm
What's
from,
whiteness?
look, whiteness, your color. Do you understand or not? If you go to a country
Okay,
like, if
so
you go to a
white
country,
people.
excuse me, if
Yeah.
you go to a country
Yeah.
like my original country,
I don't know what that is.
all right, which is Egypt, yeah,
Okay, cool.
or you go to parts of India,
Yeah.
they have a caste system whereby the lighter skin you are, the better you are. There is a racial element.
And you don't believe in that.
No, I don't believe that. The whiter you
Okay.
are, the better you are. No, I don't. Do you believe that?
Or the other way around.
Do you believe that?
No, I don't believe that at all.
Okay, good man. That's what.
Okay. But my point is why do you keep talking about whiteness?
The reason why whiteness is important, my friend, yeah, is because
You just told me it wasn't.
No, it's-
Okay, go on, keep going.
it's important in some aspects. For
Yeah.
example, writing of history is
Okay.
because, for example, in the colonial period,
Okay.
a lot of the reason why people were enslaved or colonized races
Okay.
was because they believed that their race was better than that race.
Okay.
Do you know that or not?
No,
For
sure,
example, the
I-
transatlantic
I-
slave trade.
Yeah, I know
when they
about
went
that.
into West Africa,
Sure.
part of the justification of doing that, Darwin himself writes in his book
yeah.
that he thinks that the black man has a fifth toe or something.
What's this got to do with whiteness, though?
Because it's whiteness is part. Look, for example, Nazi Germany. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
When they were doing scientific experimentation in 1930s,
Okay.
they were doing eugenics programs.
Yep.
Their idea was that the whiter you are, the better you are.
No, the more Aryan you are, the better.
Yeah, that's whiteness skin.
No, that's not. You don't know Aryanism
Bro,
is.
sorry, but it's
You do know
whiteness.
that include people from
They
Iran?
mentioned that the blacker you are,
No.
I can give you sources for it. bro.
If you look at what.
So
why are we talking about
So
it?
you're hold on.
Look,
Look,
we were
he's
going to
defending
the
Hitler.
public-
By the way, he's defending Hitler.
I'm defending
He's defending Hitler. Yeah.
Really, dude?
He's
No,
defending.
Hitler was
yeah,
abhorrent.
You're defending the eugenics
No,
program
you're
of Hitler.
defending. You're defending
Are
that
you doing
whiteness is some sort of like.
Have I said that?
Yeah, you said whiteness. You used the term
I said
white.
some sort of what? Go on.
You
Finish the
used the
sentence.
term whiteness.
And what have I said about it?
And you said that whiteness was an important thing in the,
It is
in
an
the
important
context
thing.
of academia.
Of course it is, because
That
there's
is a racial
there is-
statement.
Yes, it is a racial statement. It's not a racist statement. It's a racial statement.
Well,
I'm saying
I mean,
that
it is specifically about
no,
white people.
because
so.
there has been a history where white people have gone into
Yeah.
black
Every race
people's
has done
country.
things to every race. You
No,
understand
but they're
that?
doing it on the basis of race.
Many people have done things on the basis of race.
White people in particular.
Western
White people in
Everybody
particular.
has. Everybody
Western
has.
is a better word.
Listen, with all due respect, I made my point. I've said my point is this:
Okay.
if in the post-colonial literature you do find history is coloured, no pun intended, is coloured by the racial preferences and superiority complexes of white people for the last 100 years. I know that exists.
Okay, so does that mean you accept or reject Western
I'm
academia?
not saying that I accept or reject. I'm saying that I look at all evidences on the basis of the evidence. But you have to appreciate there can be
on
a
evidence,
bias.
not on
There can be a bias
Okay.
that has to do with race. There can be a bias that has to do with placement.
Are you saying there
geography.
is a bias on race?
Yes, there is. Well, historically, of course there has.
No, no, I mean like now.
Yeah, of course there is. Have you not seen the?
Wait. So okay,
Have you not
wait,
seen?
wait.
Have you not seen many?
What
Racial.
I'm saying is, I
ra-
wanna-
ra- race real. Sorry, let me just answer your question.
Okay.
Have you not seen race realism?
Race realism.
What is race realism? Race realism.
Is it saying there's inherently qualities in race that are superior to others?
Exactly. And
I reject that absolutely.
Great, beautiful,
Okay.
excellent. Thank you
Right.
very much.
Okay.
Race realism exists. Race realism says that the whiter you are, basically the cleverer you are. They use IQ and other things to say that the blacker you
Well,
are.
it's any race really.
Okay,
It's
no,
the idea
you
of
do you
racial
reject that?
supremacy.
Do you reject
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
Excellent.
Reject it.
Now you reject that,
Yeah.
but you can't assume all of your peers do. A lot of your.
Okay.
I'm not
I've
considering.
never met a single person who affirms that, by the way.
So race realism, who's it upheld by? But by nobody.
I don't know, like the KKK.
No, it's not by the KK. It's an academic thing, bro. It's in
People-
academia. People
Right.
equate
Right. Is it a popular view in academia?
Yes, it's
It's
quite
a
popular.
popular view.
Popular view in academia.
Race realism.
It's popular. Yes, it's very popular. Extremely popular.
That there are certain races more superior than others.
Yes, of course.
Can you name scholars?
Yeah, of course I can name scholars, bro.
Name me two.
I'll give one. Yeah, one for now. Charles Darwin. Bro, very clearly, Charles Darwin.
From
Now, hold on.
200 years ago.
No problem.
Come on. Name me one today. Name me one today.
Wait, hold on.
Academia now.
I know. Name me one
Charles,
today. Name me one today.
excuse me.
Name me one
Wait, let me finish. I'm not going to meet your arbitrary requirements. Wait, hold on. Let me finish.
He can't tell you because he's lying.
No, I'm lying. You can
Yeah.
go and write race realism and see.
You know, academia is probably the least
If
racist place.
you think that white people have not been racist in academia? Is that what you're saying?
No, white people have been racist.
Now.
Yeah, there are racist people.
And that racist bias
but you're saying that most or a popular view in academia right now is
Yes.
race realism,
Yes.
which means that certain races are superior to others.
Yes.
And you can't tell me two of them. Two
Well, I'm
academics.
not an expert in race realism, to be honest.
But you know this though.
Yeah, I know it
Wait,
exists.
you're not an expert on it? Well, okay.
I've never said I was an expert.
Yeah, I understand that, but you're talking about
Well,
it as
why-
if you know who these people are, and you're saying there's a big problem in academia.
Great. Sam Harris.
He's a race realist.
He's a race realist.
He believes that certain races
Races
are
are better
superior
than
to
others. Yeah,
others.
Sam Harris, yeah.
Okay? I'll take your word on
That's
that.
very clear statements from what he says, Sam Harris, that he believes that he hints at it very clearly. And
Hints at it?
He hints at it and in his public speeches, but I've read it in his works.
So if I email him, he will confirm what you're saying.
Ask him this question. Ask him, is intelligence based on race? Is there racial differentiation? Sorry, is there differentiation?
No, you're deviating now.
No,
because I made it very clear that you were talking about supremacy.
No, hold on.
As in one
Yeah,
race
supremacy.
in its entirety is better than another race.
Are white people
Right?
biologically are they biologically superior to black people in intelligence? Ask him that question, see how he answers. And tell me how that goes.
I'll tell you how that goes.
Tell me how that goes.
But Sam Harris is not a mainstream academic scholar. But you think most people agree with Sam Harris?
Sam Harris is not mainstream.
No, he is in his popular writings, not in academia.
Well, I agree with that.
As someone who's looked into Sam Harris,
No, fair
who's
enough.
read the moral landscape, I can tell you that.
I actually agree with you.
Okay.
Fair enough. But he's part of the public discourse.
Okay, I agree with that.
Okay,
yeah.
fine.
But I'm
But
saying
it exists.
academia,
It
though.
exists, bro.
Yeah, I'm not denying it
Great,
doesn't
that's-
exist. I'm
so
saying
race is
it's not a big thing though.
You're saying
It's
race
a
is
big
not
thing.
important. I'm saying race is important.
No, I'm not saying
That's
racism
all.
isn't important. Racism is a horrible thing, and it is important to challenge racism. What I'm saying though is that you seem to be inflating that with scholarship. And
I'm saying no.
Yeah.
You seem to be thinking that anything that is scholarly is free from bias.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
So
I'm saying that you're implying
what is it?
that Western scholarship
What is
about the Quran is largely through a lens of whiteness, I think.
No. Okay, I didn't say that. I've
you
never
don't-
said that.
you don't say that,
No,
okay.
now you've just you've put
I
words
don't
in my
think I
mouth.
put words in your mouth.
You
though. I
have.
think
You
that-
have. I've never said
So
that.
what are you saying about Western scholarship on white?
Western scholarship of the Quran
Right.
is limited, just like Eastern scholarship of the Quran can be limited. Both of them are limited in their own ways. That's true. But what I'm saying is the reason why this all came up is based on the preservation discussion.
Yeah, and I said that based on textual criticism, the study of such, it makes no sense. No scholar would say the Quran has been perfectly preserved by that standard. By that
By
standard.
who? Which you said no scholar. I've
Of
covered
the
he's a
Western-
scholar. Is that so? You're making it yourself.
I'm talking about today.
Why does that have to be today?
Because that's you
Okay,
when you talk about academia, you talk about the
So
latest.
does that have to be non-Muslim scholars?
No, it could be any Muslim. It could be anything. It could be Muslims. It could be
Masantayas is perfectly preserved. He's a huge scholar. He's written on the
an
topic.
expert on textual criticism.
He's one of the biggest experts.
What are you talking about?
You have to wait and see. Go on.
Quite a few things.
Go on.
Name, tell them.
Islam and the preservation of the Quran. Listen,
Keep going.
What I'm saying is that scholars will not say perfect preservation, and the reason they wouldn't say that
What
is
do
because
they mean by...
right? Because
I think that we're running around in circles here, bro. Do you understand?
Okay.
2 + 2 = 4.
I'll tell you what. How about you make a final statement?
Okay,
I make a
fine.
final
Fine,
statement,
fine.
and then we end it there. You happy with that?
Okay, yeah, let's finish it.
Do you want to go first?
All right.
I'll go first.
You go first. Go first.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that it makes no sense for Muslims in the park or anywhere to say that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. Why? Because there was no understanding in the early Ummah that the Quran was perfectly preserved, letter by letter, dot by dot. Instead, what Muslims believe now is wrong. Perfect preservation isn't true. Muhammad has actually demonstrated to his view, his secondary view, that he doesn't believe that, and that he said that there are some scholars who believe that nothing should be lost from the Quran, because if something is lost, then that would illustrate that it has been not perfectly preserved. But that first view should not be held by Muslims. Rather, you should be honest and say, yes, there may be some cases where we have lost certain parts of it, but we have others, as Mohammed said, on the second option, and that is fine. This is the main point I wanted to talk to Mohammed about, and I think you've clarified that, and I'm happy that you
All right,
understand.
thanks. There's a few things I want to say. First and foremost, when it comes to where we started this discussion, you said that Muslims believe, do you believe that the Quran is word for word, there's no differences, there's no change? I say that.
That's because I've heard Muslims say that.
Have you finished your conclusion?
Sorry.
Now it's my turn, yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm saying is that you've heard Muslims say it, popular speakers or whatever. I'm saying that we as Muslims believe that there are variants within some words of the Quran that are sanctioned by the Prophet, whereby the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, "Unzil al-Quran ala sab'ati ahruf." The Quran has been revealed on 7 different modes. So, which means to say that each word can have differences up to 7 according to Musa'ad Tayyar's view actually. He says that, so you can have those differences. Now those differences go back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The reason for them is taysir. Yeah? The minimum requirement for preservation according to At-Tabari, Abu Amr al-Dani and many others is that only one variation of the Quran, for example, as to recite Malik rather than Malik, not the opposite, oh no, not king, is required. Therefore, the existence of other things, or manuscripts, or hadith, or any other thing which would seemingly indicate Quranic content, which is not Quranic, on the second view, which is the Tabari's view and the early people, would be possibly Quranic, but not actually Quranic, because it does not fulfill the actual criterion. The criterion, by the way, for Quranicness is that it has to have a chain going back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It has to be in the codex, and also that it has to be in line with the Arabic language. This is a triangulated preservation. So in order for the challenge that I put to Chris was that in order for someone to say that the Quran has not been preserved, on this view, they would have to show why it is that, or how it could be that those variants don't go back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the only task you have. If you can show that, for example, Malik, owner of the Day of Judgment, Malik Yawm al-Din, versus Malik Yawm al-Din being the king, if you can show that those two things, the source of them is not Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but in fact some other source, then you have an argument against the preservation of the Quran. Then you spoke at length about perfection or perfect preservation. I said that perfect is a word fraught with subjectivity. We can't rely on the dictionaries of Western people, yeah, or the so-called scholarship of Quranic experts in the recent times of what perfect. Even that, I don't think they don't speak in the ways that you spoke. You have not mentioned one source. But having said that, what we consider perfect on the second view is that one variant is preserved throughout the Quranic script. And from that perspective, we do think the Quran is perfectly preserved. So it's not true to say, from our perspective, we don't believe the Quran is perfect. We believe the Quran is perfectly preserved. Any variant goes back to the Prophet. In order to disprove this point, you have to show that this variant has not come from the Prophet.
Okay.
That's done now. We're done now. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you for the chat.
Yeah.